Welcome to your local community education podcast, where you can make a difference and be heard. Each week, get updated on current local, state, and national educational news. Your Voice, Your Choice podcast with your host, Harmony Vanderhorst.
Welcome, everyone listening today. I'm Harmony Vanderhorst.
I'm Erica Hodges.
I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm Dana McCabe.
And we would like to welcome you to our show today. We're going to start out with our Victory Minute. This is our second week of the podcast, and we just wanted to report that we had over 1,000 listeners or views on our podcast. So that means people are getting
Yes, awesome.
Yes. We didn't really know how this was going to go, so we were super excited for that. And we've got a lot of really positive feedback, and we appreciate all the feedback that we're getting. It definitely helps us improve.
Definitely.
Our agenda for today is we're going to talk about our local, state, and national education. Our deep dive topic for this week is, what are all those acronyms and who is a social justice warrior? Then what community needs we have and how can you help? And then we will wrap up with what is wonderful in Southern Utah. For our local news, we didn't have a meeting this last week. Our next meeting will be December 14th at Washington County School District Office Building. That's right off of Tabernacle downtown. That's where most of the meetings are. For this type of meeting, it's not a work meeting. It's an open public comment meeting. And you have to sit through the whole meeting, though, in order to be able to comment. That's kind of one of the rules. But the meeting doesn't start till 4:30, but we recommend showing up at around 4 o'clock. This is a great opportunity for you to get to know other people in the community who are helping out. It also, if you have questions about the format of the meeting, if you want to make a comment, or sometimes we have people there who want to comment on the agenda items and they need a little bit more than 3 minutes, so they need someone else to share their comment. So that's a good time to come. Plan on marking out your calendars for December 14th.
Everyone come.
And is this where they can come around 2 o'clock and listen to the board discuss as well?
Yes, so there's actually another opportunity on that day. They have work sessions. They are technically closed for public comment, but you can come sit and listen. And it depends. When do we usually know what time those are going to start? The day before usually is about when we know when they're going to start. Sometimes they start around 12:30. Sometimes they start around 2. And you can come. We actually find out a lot of information in those work meetings because there's actual dialogue between the board members. During a public comment meeting, there's really no dialogue. They've already discussed things. They're just action items, and they're going to vote on them. So
I would like to add that sometimes they have, whether it's a mayor from a city or that comes in and addresses them, and they would be there at that time.
Yeah, we just had a few months ago, I think all of our state representative and legislators were there talking about bills and different things that were coming up. And so those are pre-meetings in the afternoon. So that's, if you can't come that day, look on the schedule and mark out some earlier time if you want to do that. There are 2 things we are looking into right now that we need some help with. If you are interested, or if you have had a child in the dual immersion program, specifically the Chinese, we probably will touch on all the programs. We're looking into those programs and how beneficial they are to our children. There's been some concerns and issues with the AP pass rate and the expectations of the students. So if you're interested in being on those committees and finding out exactly what we're doing, if you could message me over Facebook or comment, I'll put a post on our Facebook page. Get a hold of me. We're putting that group together. I'm also going to put a video out in the next couple days exactly what we're looking into. That should be pretty beneficial, hopefully, to our students and our community as well.
And that Facebook page is Washington County School District Parents, correct?
Yes. Yep. We changed it so that it's a little more
WCSD Parents.
It's a little easier to remember. Okay, go ahead, Lindsay.
Okay, I'm going to update you guys on what's happening on the state level this week or last week. The USBE Special Standards and Assessment Committee met on November 16th to discuss their new gender identity guidance for Utah schools. By they, I mean USBE.
So are USBE the state's, this is a different committee?
Utah State Board of Education.
Standards Committee.
Yeah, they're standards
so
committee.
Are they voted on or appointed people?
I believe they are part of the school board, and they are voted on by the
Committees and positions.
school board. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's kind of a committee within the school
Board?
the state school board.
Okay.
They want to make it very clear that this is not policy. This is just guidance of how they feel schools should handle their gender identity. I would like to note, I would like to note that the guidance letter, they are asking schools they're asking them to create their own policies. So this is just a guidance letter, but they're asking them to create their own policies. A few of the main talking points were facilities, so bathrooms and locker rooms. The committee members decided that discrimination trumps privacy laws. For example, if your child feels uncomfortable sharing a bathroom or locker room with a transgender student, they would need to ask for special accommodations to use a single stall bathroom or a different changing facility. The parental notification bulletin, what they kind of talked about that was the age of the student will impact the school's involvement of parents. However, parental participation is not required for a student to request accommodation. Students are informed that parents will be made aware of the accommodation that is granted and are encouraged to include their parents in the process.
So students can go to the school themselves and request accommodation. They don't have to have is that through elementary and high school, or is this
That's
just
what they're saying is the age of the student.
But they don't have a specific age now.
Yeah, they don't have a specific age. So the age of the student depends on how they handle it.
Okay.
I'm curious about parents' response to that one.
Yeah. And then the preferred name / pronouns. The interpretation of the Utah statute regarding the rights of parents requires permission from a legal parent or guardian to use a different name / pronoun, even nickname, other than the name pronoun on record for all students regardless of gender identity. A student's request to be referred to by a different name should be granted if they ask the educator to use a derivative. Yes. A derivative of their name on record. The pronouns they, them, theirs have been established as gender neutral, singular pronouns, and may be used when addressing all students. There's quite a few more bulletins that they went over, actually a lot of more bulletins, like overnight school trips and things like that, for example, and dress code. But we'll have a better understanding. They didn't completely finish the guidance letter. We'll have a better understanding at their meetings on December 2nd and December 3rd. It's still a work in progress, so if anyone wants to, if they have concerns or comments that they want to make, reach out to your state representatives in Washington County. Ours is Kristen Norton. And if anyone wants to watch the video of their meeting of them going over this guidance letter, you can watch it on their YouTube channel. It's USBE Media on YouTube.
And that's something we could link on our website, Harmony.
Yeah, we can put that underneath our podcast. We'll try to start getting all the links and references. We'll try to make that readily available on our podcast site. I do have one question, though, on clarification. So if you want to change bathrooms or those kind of accommodation, you don't need a parent's permission. But if you want to change what name you're called, then you have to have a legal document from a parent or guardian. That's what they're requesting, or that's what they're recommending right now.
They are kind of like treading on like thin ice over this whole thing. So nothing was like really clear of that. The only things that were definitely clear were that if they do make a request to use a bathroom, a different bathroom, then if our children, if other children feel uncomfortable, then they have to make a request for accommodations.
Okay.
Because their discrimination laws outweigh the other kids' privacy laws is kind of, actually that's the exact wording that
they used during that meeting.
That the legal representative used.
I just wanted to clarify that a little bit. Okay.
This week would be a really good week to email the state board and let them know how you feel, in addition to reaching out to Kristen Norton for our local.
And they are asking for our school boards to come up with a policy, mainly regarding the bathroom situation. So if you have comments, you should reach out to our school board representatives as well.
Yeah, and as far as we know, that's not on any agenda that we have seen. And in order to get that on the agenda and the school board to even talk about it at the next meeting, parents have to be bringing it up. Because as far as unless they've been actively doing something behind the scenes that we don't know about, this isn't on their schedule of events, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And I think, though, it's important to point out that each district gets to pick if they adhere to this or adopt this at all. So it'll be district by district how they implement this.
Yeah.
As of now.
Yeah.
As of now.
Yeah, as of right now.
It'd be interesting to see if anything goes before the legislature on
Yeah,
any of
and
it.
so again, too, we want to just remind you, like, look this up. Look at this YouTube video. Find out how you feel about as a parent. That's why you have a representative. Get a hold of them and let them know how you feel.
Absolutely.
Okay, go ahead, Dana.
Okay, I'll move on to the national. Last week, I talked briefly about the National School Board Association that had sent the letter to the Biden administration, and therefore it went to the DOJ saying that they would involve the FBI to investigate parents, the whole domestic terrorist comments, and the National School Board Association had walked that back a little bit. Since that we met last week in our last podcast, it's no longer been a threat. The FBI did raid a home of a mother who was a homeschooling mom. They raided her home when she was actually homeschooling her 3 children in Grand Junction, Colorado, which is, a neighboring state. It's not somewhere far away off on the East Coast. And she had been very active in local politics and the school board, being very vocal about the mask mandates and the CRT. There was some election stuff in there on the local level that she was involved with. And so when they came in, they basically, I don't want to say busted down her door, but they used force to get in there. They handcuffed her. Her children were there. She was asking them why they were there. They wouldn't say anything. There's no documents. All the documents from that raid have been sealed, but she has come out publicly and said that she was, being targeted for her First Amendment rights. She started a homeschool, not a homeschool, but a website that's called americasmom.net. And what she did with that is her idea is to educate and inform parents, so parents were showing up. Interestingly enough, since she's been involved in the local school board politics, the state of Colorado turned 9 school boards over, and in her local school district, that was also turned over. So I'm not sure. We don't have all the facts because the documents are sealed, but she's saying that she was targeted just for her First Amendment rights. But the school board, the FBI, there is some correlation from everything that happened back in October. It will definitely be an interesting case to follow. She was not arrested, just handcuffed, and hopefully in the coming days we'll know more. I will add personally, her exercising her First Amendment rights is nothing. It's what we've done here in Washington County about the mask mandates that should be left up to parents, and we should be able to voice with our First Amendment rights. It's not criminal.
No. And we are actually, I'm going to reach out to her and hopefully we can get her to either call in or be on the podcast so we can actually get a first person perspective of what went on, because too, we're finding, in the media, we only get what the media reports, and we too, as parents, we're concerned. And so we would like to get a first-hand report. So watch for that, and we'll let you know the progress on that as well.
And interestingly, watching this, I thought to myself, if it went down exactly like she said and the reasons she's being targeted, that could be any one of us sitting here for being involved locally on local elections at the school board, exercising our parental rights. That's why it's a little bit scary, but we'll follow it and report
and
back.
I have talked to Nate, who is he's our interim sheriff right now, and he has direct relations with our local FBI agents, and we talked about it, and he said nothing like that is going on in our particular county, but that is important for parents and citizens to have those relationships with all the different types of political, the police, the sheriff, the school board, everyone in your community. You should have a network of people that you know and trust.
And just to refer you back to her website, it was americasmom.net, specifically to educate and inform parents regarding their children's education.
I think part of what's so important about what we're doing is trying to build those relationships right now with our board members and the sheriff, and before there's a need, but just making sure that we know each other face to face and have that connection. It really helps in working out when we have issues.
That's definitely what we're trying to do. And then before we get into our definitions, did you want to touch on what happened with the school, with the boards or the books at the state level too, real quick?
Oh, sure. The Canyons District Book Review, they pulled their books immediately without following their policy, and now they're being targeted by the ACLU. And I have been surprised by how much pushback.
I have too.
The governor coming out and saying that we needed to slow down and think about it before, and maybe move those concerning books to a different age level in the library. I don't know if he really doesn't realize what's going on and how these books are pornographic and harmful to our children, or if there's some other motive behind. I'm just really stumped, I guess. But what our best course of action is just keep reaching out to the school boards and get other parents to call in as well, because we want to protect the children and make sure that they can go to school and be kids.
Yeah,
really.
And I would definitely encourage you. Utah Parents United has some really good. They have some really good posts on there with people who actually have clips from the book, or you can Google
on
excerpts
Facebook,
from the
they have Laverne in the library. Laverna, yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up. She actually just posted about an hour ago step-by-step parent instructions on how to get involved and what you can do. And so it's going to be a great resource that they've provided.
Awesome.
So training to how to make your voice heard.
And just so you know, this was a conversation we had in my house about it, because my kids were talking about it. My daughter was like, well, Mom, what's the big deal? Like, I don't have to read them. Like, they're just there. And we talked about, we compared it to media and movies. And I said, well, there's a lot of rated R movies out there too, but do I let kindergartners watch them, or do I let third graders watch them? No, I don't. I let you watch what's age appropriate for your age. And so we're not asking people to burn these books and ban them forever. We just want to keep our kids innocent and safe at what level is appropriate for them. And so that's what we're trying to vet, is just what's appropriate for our kids. These books, if people want to read them, that's great. They can be outside of the school education system, just not in our school libraries.
Absolutely. Just so there's not access.
Yes.
Right. The content really violates our Utah codes of what's appropriate for minors. And I don't know if you want to get a good insight, then go to Laverna in the library, and you can read some excerpts, and then you can
There's
judge
lots
for
of
yourself.
examples on there.
Yep.
Yeah, I encourage you to do that. Okay, we're just going to talk about just a couple of these definitions with the time that we have. And we talked about a social justice warrior last week. And even as we were finishing the podcast and I was re-listening to it, I was like, do I know what a social justice warrior is, or do I just like to throw that out there? Sometimes it make me look like I know what I'm talking about.
You do.
Yeah.
So I actually Googled it so that I could kind of know the term. And it's basically, in a simple terms, it's a group of citizens or people that want reform. And if you look at history, social justice warriors actually have made some great changes in our country. They have they're one of the driving forces behind women to vote. They're one of the driving forces behind, equality in the Disabilities Act, and making that education accessible to all students. And there is some good. There is a lot of good in that. There's a lot of good in equality in the workplace and different things like that. So historically speaking, and that was slavery was the other thing. So they were one of the big pushes to abolish slavery in our country. And these are good things that have happened in history. But what I want you to look into right now is, what are our social justice warriors? What are they pushing right now? What are their agendas?
And have they been hijacked?
Yes. Have they been hijacked by people who really don't have our children and our society's best interest, and maybe have the pendulum swung a little too far? So that's a little bit of your homework to look into this week. And the other definition that I wanted to touch on was critical race theory. And this is a movement that's been around for a really long time. But now we are pushing it in our education system. It was never designed to be, it was a higher, and correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just trying to like summarize all my information I have here. It was meant to be at a college level intellectual class. It was never meant to be in the school system, in the education, in the
Maybe it was.
in the
Yeah, maybe it was.
and maybe it was. We don't 100%. We don't really know, but it definitely, some of the things that they push are that race is not natural, biologically grounded feature of physically distinct subgroups of human beings, but socially constructed category that is used to oppress and exploit people of color. Critical race theorists hold that race is inherent in the law and legal institutions of the United States, insofar as they function to create and maintain social, economic, and political inequities between whites and non-whites, especially African Americans. So they're basically the way that I understand it is they're trying to pick a divide and cause confrontation. That's really like what it boils down to. And so there is so much information out there on critical race theory. This could take a whole day of our time, so we're not going to really dive deep. Does anybody else want to add to that?
Just a little correction. You said race is inherent, but they say that racism is inherent in our systems, and they think that people are divided into two groups, oppressors and oppressed. And the concern that I have with the critical race theory is that they're telling our kids that they are somehow responsible for somebody else's actions because of their skin color, which is the complete opposite of what I think they're trying to achieve.
Yes.
That division. Yeah. And then a note on social justice. We don't want social justice. Justice is blind. And when it becomes a social justice issue, it's because who's in the limelight right now? What group can we manipulate to bring about our purposes? We want our justice to be blind and based on values and our laws that are equal for everyone. And equity is another word that gets thrown in there, and we want equality.
Yeah,
exactly.
So just a few highlights.
And I would just add on, like the CRT and the social justice warrior, at the national level, we have some associations, the National Education Association, the NSBA. They have people that are in leadership that are outright pushing this stuff. So go to those websites, do your own homework. The NEA has a section for ed justice. They get into the social justice stuff, but people at the top are actually pushing this stuff.
Yeah, this is a real thing. We're not making this up. So it's coming
I wish we were.
Yeah, it's coming from a lot of places. Real quick, we're going to go over community needs. We still have, as of this morning, we have 67 jobs open district-wide, and those are anywhere from an LPN, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, and coaches. If you want to find out more details on those, go to washk12.org, and there's right on the front page, district jobs. You can click on that. And then your homework, if you didn't know, we're going to be more clear this week. Your homework for next week, even if you're from out of state listening to this podcast, because I know we reached people out of state as well, you need to find out who your school board representative is, and you get extra credit if you teach someone else how to do it or tell your neighbor who your representative is. So you're pushing your kids to do their homework, so you got to do your homework too.
Be an example.
Yes.
Go to the Washington County School District website.
Yes.
That's your first hint.
Yes. Okay, real quick, let's go through and tell our
page 26.
Page 26. What is wonderful in Southern Utah? You want to start, Lindsay?
Yeah. I just wanted to talk about my friend Nicole Golding. Her and her brother Zach Holt started a nonprofit called Tan's Treats, and they provide food for kids in our community. They work with the school district and they find kids at risk. And with our big Christmas break coming up, 15 days, they are trying to get large food sacks filled so that they can make sure that those kids have food over the break. I just think that they're awesome. They're making a huge difference in Southern Utah. And I just want to tell them thank you.
That's awesome.
And also, if you want to help out, they take donations, or if you want to help stuff sacks, go to their website, www.tanstreats.com.
Awesome.
So I want to shout out to the Dixie High School Pro Start Foods class that prepared a wonderful Thanksgiving meal and served it to our first responders, police, firefighters, and EMT yesterday. And I'm so impressed with the work that they put in. It was really fun to see that.
That's awesome. And then we'll let Dana do her
Just going to give a shout out. I've attended a lot of events, and we just have an awesome, awesome community. Everywhere I go, I'm meeting new people who make this place a great place to live. I'm so glad to be here.
And thank you for listening today.
Happy Thanksgiving.
You've been listening to Your Voice, Your Choice podcast with Harmony Vanderhorst. Like and follow our Facebook page, subscribe with your favorite podcast platform, and most importantly, share this with your friends. Till next time, this has been Your Voice, Your Choice podcast with Harmony Vanderhorst. This has been a production from a podcast studio.